you playing?
Hello, and welcome to What the Bleep Are You Playing? A podcast where we play a game many times bad and tell you why the bleep we played it. I am Sean Toads. This is Double Thomas. And the ultimate team, Mason. And we played... Battletoads and Double Dragon. The ultimate team! How you guys doing?
Cowabunga! Oh wait, no, that's not. That's Ninja Turtles. Wrong franchise. My bad.
Comedy.
So we dipped as far back in time as we've done for a game at this point.
Is this really the oldest game we've played?
So.
Yeah, because the only game we've played from the 90s was Phantom Menace, right?
I think no. Wait. When was Hydro Thunder?
Oh yeah, Hydro Thunder's Hydro Thunder's
90s.
arcade wood, but the port we played was older. But yeah.
Okay.
But yeah. So we went back a few years.
We've been in the 90s a couple of times, but not a whole lot.
But yeah, we dipped back to 1993.
When I was -10, just to make everybody listening feel old.
And we played Battletoads and Double Dragons, the ultimate team.
Which I went and checked before this recent iteration of Battletoads from 2020. This was the last home console Battletoads.
Yep.
Game. It was an arcade game that came out the year after, and then there was a couple decade gap until we got Battletoads.
A franchise that was dormant for a long time.
Very long time.
Despite having a fairly large following. So much so that, it was, I believe, my number 3 on video games we wished were movies list. I'm pretty sure that I'm not the only person that would like to see more Battletoads.
Yeah, it's a great franchise. It's a very 90s kind of franchise, but there are a lot of other franchises that are very 90s. Ninja Turtles, for example, that are still around today, so
And I have a fondness for this game in particular. I have played a lot of the other Battletoads, but this was the one that I played the most. My cousins would bring it over and play it. We'd play it on Super Nintendo when I was younger. We'd play it over at my grandparents' house. And then my brother got it for the Sega Genesis, and so we played it a bunch growing up later on Sega Genesis. And then I've played the NES versions. The only version of this Battletoads and Double Dragon that I haven't played is the Game Boy version, because I didn't know it existed until like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, there's a Game Boy version?
Man, wait, for like original brick Game Boy? Oh, that would have sucked.
Well, it doesn't have the 3D environment, and it's one player, so it is a different, but all the Battletoads had it. Actually, I believe it's pretty highly reviewed.
Really?
But also, that's from the time, I could be wrong, I don't remember. Mediocre, 3.5 stars.
That's interesting.
Or, 2.5 out of 6. Because that's a rating scale.
That's a rating scale, all right.
That is, yeah.
I'm the contrarian, everybody. What a surprise. I'm the Double Dragon guy.
Yep.
I really like Double Dragon out of the two franchises.
Which is partly, other than nostalgia, why I picked this game, is because I knew I had a big Battletoads attachment. But I know Thomas's love of Double Dragon, so I was like, this is going to be a fun one to talk about, because it's two franchises that we really haven't given a whole lot of airtime to yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if we will in the future more, but we do love some good beat-em-ups.
Yeah.
Even if I am incredibly bad
at every beat-em-up ever.
A good beat-em-up is a super satisfying experience. It all depends on, the kind of beat-em-up you're playing, the positioning, the moves you can pull off, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this game is a very good beat-em-up, even if it's definitely more Battletoads than Double Dragon.
Very much. Mason, how much Battletoads or Double Dragon had you played before this?
Absolutely none.
Nice. Okay, so this was really an introduction.
I was aware of the existence of both franchises. I knew what they were, but the most I knew about either of these is like I remember briefly watching my friends play Battletoads, and that's it. And they were constantly stuck on the speeder bike level. So,
I mean, it is a franchise that is known for being stupid hard. Mm-hmm. The first game is kind of notorious for its how hard it is,
and this is supposed to be the easy game.
And they're arcade. They were arcade games that got ported over to systems. And can you imagine trying to dump quarters into this game? Every time you die, you're like, oh, yep, there goes my week's allowance.
Oh, man.
For every continue, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that is an element that, like, it's wild to look back when you play these sort of beat-em-ups that, that were arcade-based. You're like, oh, yeah, this cost money every time I died.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there was actually an arcade version of this, but...
I don't believe so. I think this was one, but obviously the original Battletoads. And if it was, there was a ported arcade version.
The original Battletoads and the original Double Dragon were both arcade, so...
So this was...
No, this was only... It was game. There was a Super NES and Genesis version. Then there was also versions for Game Boy and NES.
Yeah, because it was made on the NES.
Was it really?
Yes, it was ported over to these ones. It was an NES and Game Boy first, and then it was ported over to SNES and Genesis.
Genesis, yeah. That's interesting because I consider SNES and Genesis like the best platforms. For...
Well, I some of it was also at the timing what was available and what was coming out. 93 would have been. NES's into the NES's domain, early in SNES time frame. So but as Thomas mentioned, this is while it is a crossover, and it's not to say that the Double Dragon characters are forgotten or not taken care of. It is at its heart a Battletoads game,
which is interesting because of the two franchises, Double Dragon is the one that has lasted the longest.
Yeah,
Double Dragon was the one that got a ton of new entries before Battletoads did,
and a movie, yeah.
The less said on the movie, the better.
Yeah,
like the room. But yeah, no, Double Dragon the movie's bad, but it is interesting, but also it's understandable because back then the Double Dragon people just gave away the license to anyone. Like, anyone could take Double Dragon and do whatever the hell they wanted with it, which is why the lore of Double Dragon is not good.
This game has lore?
Well, yeah.
Well, every game has lore. Mm-hmm. Tetris has lore, for God's sake.
What, huh?
Yeah, it's called the movie. Go watch it.
Oh, well, that's not in-game lore, that's...
What are you talking about? Everything is symbolism. Okay, but no, seriously. The lore of Double Dragon's so messed up that I kind of understand why Rare just kind of did whatever they wanted. Mm-hmm. Because they were kind of just given it. They were making a Battletoads game. And then they were like, hey, you want Double Dragon? Here's Double Dragon. So,
yeah, and it was one of 3 Battletoads games that came out in 93.
Yeah, that's right.
So, it was a chance for Rare to kind of really show off, because this game is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a solid looking game. I don't think it's the best looking Super Nintendo.
It's also
game,
an NES port
it's
to a
also
Super.
an NES port, so it's kind of
early SNES. This is still, I think, 3 years before Donkey Kong Country came out.
Wow.
So Rare had time to perfect. Rare had time to perfect kind of what they were doing. And I think where I'll lead to the conversation here is just talk about a little bit about Rare, because I don't know the next time we're going to get to talk about this company, and I love talking about Rare because they are so interesting.
I mean, have you tried looking up how much Rare games are from the 90s are specifically? Oh god,
because with the Xbox, there's a Rare replay, bitch.
Yeah.
Well, but it's really not the same as the games that they made that weren't on Rare Replay. Have you tried looking up how much Conker's Bad Fur Day is?
Yes. Yeah, because
game is expensive.
Well, part of that is, and I've said this, there is a multiverse out there. There is a different universe where a butterfly flapped its wings and Nintendo bought Rare, like Rare thought they were going to. And we don't have kind of what's happened the last 20 years. Like, Rare has been a Xbox exclusive for 20 years now.
But think about this. If we were to live in that universe, we probably wouldn't have the Kinect. You know.
Oh, wow. I just realized that we are in the bad universe.
This isn't the bad place.
Established that.
But, and it's not to say that Rare's Microsoft lineup is bad. They have some good stuff, a lot of it. They've made good games. There's a funny story out there about how a lot of the company was upset at Microsoft when they were making Viva Pinata because Microsoft was promoting Gears of War more than their game, and they were upset that they were promoting this dumb Gears of War game and not our brilliant piece of work, Viva Pinata.
You know, the system seller, Viva Pinata.
That was that was supposed to be that was a launch title, or an early launch title of the 360, if I remember right. Or if it wasn't launched, it was early around it. They were this is what's going to sell the 360.
The only thing that I remember about Viva Pinata is that I watched the show before I saw the games. So I thought the games were based on the show and not the other way around.
The other way around.
Yeah.
Because the Rare had a couple of launch titles for the Xbox.
Yeah, the Perfect Dark reboot.
Yeah, Perfect Dark Zero.
Ooh, yeah.
They had the Blast. What's it called?
I can find it here.
The Kiara.
Yeah. Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, they had Grabbed by the Ghoulies. Was their first Microsoft game. I don't know.
That's such a horrible title.
Obviously, Viva Pinata, Perfect
Viva
Dark
Pinata.
Cameo, Elements of Power.
Cameo, that's the one.
And it's not that they've had bad things because they made the rebooted Battletoads. Obviously, Viva Pinata even though it's a weird game, it is a really good game.
Sea of Thieves is still really.
Sea of Thieves is a really good game.
Sea of Thieves is Rare?
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it's weird because of what they were in the 90s and how they got the Nintendo's attention more than anything is actually. They were developing for, let me get the exact name of the system they were developing for. It was a home computer system. They were developing for the ZX Spectrum home computer.
Gesundheit.
And they were making games for it, and they got a hold of a imported Famicom. And they were like, we can reverse engineer this. And they did, but Nintendo was like, no, you can't. The Famicom is not reverse engineerable. You cannot be able to do this.
Perfect piece of. What do you mean you've re-engineered?
And they then went and showed them to that, and Nintendo was like, "Oh my gosh, you must develop for us. Here is basically unlimited money. Go do things." And so they stopped developing. They started developing for the NES. There were still a lot of before the SNES. There were still a lot of ports and things like that. They did a lot of things, and they had a lot of arcade-based games. And then the SNES came around, and they started making pretty much exclusively Nintendo games. Really starting with Donkey Kong, and Nintendo started giving them license. We know, obviously, the Donkey Kong license they had for the 3 country games and then 64. Mm-hmm. And I asked Thomas before we started podcasting, do we think Rare's best time was the SNES or the 64? And I think it's the 64 is where
64 is probably the best because you get Donkey Kong 64, you get Conker, you get Banjo-Kazooie,
GoldenEye, Perfect Dark,
Blast Core,
mm-hmm.
Blast Core. Yeah, they started
Diddy Kong Racing.
They started going up with the Super Nintendo, but 64 is where Rare hit their peak.
And that's kind of I think some of that post 64 is where, as a company, they kind of dipped down in Nintendo. They only made one Nintendo game, or home console Nintendo game post 64, and that's Star Fox Adventures for the GameCube.
And the less said about that game, the better.
I actually like that game.
Okay, moving on.
That game, and it's well reviewed. It's just, it's a different conversation here. It's a very different Star Fox game. It's trying to do something different, and so some people are.
Yeah, exactly. It's different. It's not a Star Fox, anyways.
Have you played it?
A little bit. It's been a while, but I have. It wasn't a Star Fox game. That's all I remember.
He's a fox in the stars, therefore Star Fox. But
I
anyway,
don't know why I'm aggressive towards Mason today.
it's fun to be
it's the
aggressive towards
allergies.
Mason.
Has anything changed?
But I think there is definitely something to be said about going back and playing these games and looking at Rare as a whole, being like, not that they haven't made good games, or not that they haven't done stuff and has been successful with Microsoft, but man, I miss their Nintendo days.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Nintendo, I felt like Rare was more comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Microsoft, I feel like they still do good stuff, but with Nintendo, they really, they had their... Nintendo was basically their baby.
Mm-hmm.
Or Rare was Nintendo's baby for a while.
Yeah, they had probably the best third-party partnership that Nintendo's ever had with a company, it feels like.
Yeah.
There may be one or two that I'm not thinking of, but like the amount of big, banger games that they made for that company is wild.
They definitely in the N64 days they had the best third-party relationship because, Squeenix had fucked off to PlayStation, and
That's
so
true.
so did Capcom too, and like Activision definitely did that too.
Yeah.
All these big companies that had great relationships when Nintendo with the N64 came out, they all looked at the N64 cartridges and went, interesting, and then all simultaneously fucked off to PlayStation.
They all were like, we want discs. Give us discs.
And Nintendo was like, here's a stone tablet of an N64 cartridge, and they were like, see you later. And they really haven't had a great third-party relationship with developers since.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely gotten better on the Switch eras,
with the Wii U and the Switch era, but
yeah, it still is. A lot of it is more third parties being like, well, this is the greatest selling console that we've got. We might as well try to get something on there. And Nintendo's been more they've been worked together and figure out more that fits for the console. And there's been less of trying to shove a square peg into a round hole that was sometimes the GameCube and the Wii era of third-party development.
Right. And like as great as the N64 is as a console, it did a lot of almost irreversible damage to Nintendo as a company.
At times, yeah. And that is, Mason had that's a great point, Mason. That I think maybe why they built that rapport with Rare is that other companies were jumping ship.
Yeah.
That they gave us, so that Squeenix did make such or at the time would have been SquareSoft made such.
When did they become Squeenix?
2000. It's right after Final Fantasy X came out.
Okay, so it would have been just Square.
Yeah, but SquareSoft did dip, and like that was a huge thing for for the platforms that were making. These were big franchises. A big franchise, not just Final Fantasy, but Dragon Quest in Japan, and Mario RPG, and all these sort of things that they had done for the Super Nintendo, they did not do for the 64.
Well, even Capcom had been Mega Man. Mega Man was NES on, but the minute the PlayStation came around, what went to PlayStation? Mega Man 8 and Mega Man X4. So.
And even though the 64 did get a Mega Man game, it got what's it called?
Mega Man 64.
Well, that's what it was called on the 64, but
Mega Man
it was
Legends.
Legends, that's what it is. Yeah. It got Mega Man Legends, but that was like the only Mega Man game it got. Whereas, like you said, they kept getting other Mega Man games.
So yeah, and I think this is just while we've kind of divvied off from the Battletoads Double Dragon conversation, it is fun to look at this because this is a point in time where this is kind of the point where Rare went on and moved forward with Nintendo more than anything. And you can kind of really see what they like to develop for the Super Nintendo because there are a lot of environmental and art style elements from this game that you see very much in the Donkey Kong Country games.
Yes.
Very much.
Very much so,
The environments there's a very similar texture to a lot of stuff, and color palettes and different things are very similar. I think Donkey Kong, you could say, is a little brighter colors, but they are very similar in the way that they make things look, and even a lot of the motions are very similar. There's your characters are swinging in this game down, and I was like, that's very similar to the ropes going down in Donkey Kong Country. So
yeah. So an interesting piece of conversation that I've just thought of, as we briefly brought up at the beginning of this podcast, where we were like, it's more of a Battletoads game than a Double Dragon game. Would this game have worked inversely if it was more of a Double Dragon game with Battletoads pushed onto it?
I'm going to say no, not because Double Dragon is bad or that it's there, but I think at the time frame, Rare had a better grasp of what Battletoads was than the company that owned Double Dragon had a grasp of what they wanted Double Dragon to be.
Yeah, because like I said, at that point, Double Dragon was just anything and everything. Remember when they had a cartoon?
Oh, jeez.
Where they were both literal, like, double dragons? Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, because Double Dragon, which was owned by... I will get it here in just a second. Techno's Japan.
That's a weird name.
So, like, they licensed it out. So, no, I think it works better in the Battletoads universe. But, you know, we can piggyback off that here and say, you know, let's jump into some of the gameplay of this game and how it is. Because it's an arcade game, and I personally think that this game is at its best as a two-player, sit down on the couch and have fun with your friends. But there's an immediate gameplay mechanic that I know irritated Thomas and can be really frustrating times this games.
Yeah.
Friendly fire
It's everywhere.
Everywhere.
I think it would be more tolerable if it didn't actually take your health down, because it is kind of funny sometimes. But it would be more funny if it didn't.
It's
if it wasn't
funny, but the minute I lose health, I'm not laughing. I mean, I can laugh when I lose health in a video game. I'm not a fucking curmudgeon. Yeah, I got hit. Resetting the game, bitch.
Throwing controller through wall.
But like,
I'm losing after the first slap on Baby Park. We got to reset the GameCube.
But like, it's whenever there's friendly fire in video games that always pisses me off, especially in beat 'em ups.
Yeah.
Like, again, it can be funny, but there's also times where I'm just trying to pick up the bad guy, and then Sean picks up Billy and uses him like a baseball bat. It's like, ah!
And I think one of the things that's great about beat 'em ups is they are an opportunity to really utilize teamwork to take out enemies. Mm-hmm. That is sometimes, and maybe that's trying to be the challenge here, is like you have to figure out teamwork while avoiding friendly fire. Maybe that's something they were trying to do element on it. But more often than not, in practice, it's just a lot of hurting each other. Which, again, admittedly, the animations are hilarious, and there are moments that are very funny. But even in, say, like Lego Star Wars, when you're playing co-op mode, and it's fun to, you know, be the person who's lightsabering Jar Jar Binks. But you're not ending the game because you lightsabered Jar Jar Binks.
Right. That's kind of the thing with the Lego games. They're infinite lives, so you can't really do that much harm. Meanwhile, in this game, you have 3 lives. You can get more, obviously. 3 continues, and then you gotta start the whole thing over again. Which I mean,
from the beginning.
I like that it's 3 lives, 3 continues per player.
Yes.
Because otherwise that would piss me off more, but 3 lives, 3 continues per player, that is what it should be for a beat 'em up. So.
And I don't know if this is like the way that they just had 2D beat 'em ups be at the time, and it probably was, and me probably saying this is like blasphemous or something, but this was, what year was this, 93?
Yes.
This was 1993. Saving in games existed at this time.
Yeah.
But
why wasn't it a thing
that
here?
That wasn't a beat 'em up.
But that wasn't, like, you had saving in certain types of games, but the majority of, like, beat 'em ups and still arcades, and remember, this is, even though it didn't come out on an arcade necessarily, it is still built on an arcade engine, which is built to, okay, you have to put in a quarter and restart. You're not saving till the next time you come in. So, like, it has a reason for it, and I do actually really like beat 'em ups that have that it's all about your continues. It's not, you're not saving a point. Albeit, you know, if you have an emulated version of this game when you can just save points and just go back, that is nice. But there is a challenge to early beat 'em ups that is all about, okay, I have to get through this on my lives.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. But at the same time, like, if I was trying to play, like, newer 2D beat-em-ups like Shredder's Revenge or Scott Pilgrim, and they played like this, I wouldn't be able to do it. I just wouldn't, because I'm bad at these kind of games.
Yeah, but that's still, again, like, again, I think the thing about beat 'em up is they are very much a co-op experience. It is meant to sit down and play. Whether you beat the game or not it is a challenge to sit down with your friend and try to beat it. Now, that element, as we've talked before, just sitting down and on the couch and playing with your friends doesn't exist. So, if you're playing by yourself, yeah, I might want to save because I might need to get up and go and do something, or I might it's like that. But in that day and age when arcade or you're going to the arcade and playing it, or you're sitting at home with your friend and playing co-op, yeah, it's not important. Save's not important for that necessarily. But I do get from a modern look at it, I can see why that would be something that could be irritating.
Yeah.
It's something I don't mind because I like playing a lot of those classic beat 'em ups, but at the same time, I do completely understand where you're coming from because it is kind of irritating. So,
I think, like I said, I've played this game on every version except the Game Boy. And I think the Super Nintendo has the best controller scheme for the game. I think because the 4 buttons and everything, it works better on the Super Nintendo.
Which is odd because the 4 buttons don't really do anything.
They don't. They're not allowed. And extrapolate it out to the 6 buttons on the Genesis.
Yeah.
And then you're like, but because it was designed for the NES, which is 2 buttons. Right. So, but I do really like the controls of this game as a whole once you grasp them. But I don't know if Mason especially, this is your first time playing this. Thomas with more of the beat 'em up experience. If you guys agree with me that I think the controls are really good in this game. It just takes a bit to get used to them on some, but
I think they're fine.
Yeah, they're fine.
We don't really have to worry much about a camera at this point because we're, while it has a lot of 3D elements, it's still 2D. But there were some annoying parts when we would open up a chest and a 1-up would come just off screen and you can't go and get it.
Twice. I was like, come on.
It's like, bitch, give it to me.
Why would it do that?
So those are some little things that
that's another good thing with older games. That's happened to me more times than I can count. Especially in beat 'em ups like, ooh, that's a turkey, that's a full health, that's off screen. No. Get down on your knees, reach for it, Billy. Reach.
Just punch through the invisible wall for crying out loud.
I think at one point I threw one of you out there trying to throw it at, like, come on, go get it. But there's not a lot really to talk about necessarily when it comes to camera or controls because they are very much beat 'em up camera controls that very similar to all beat 'em ups at the time played. I think the big thing just to talk about this game in terms of it is just the amount of effort put into sprite work and animations for the characters.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the sprite work is fantastic.
Sprite work's fantastic. Even though this is more of a Battletoads game than a Double Dragon game, I really appreciate the fact that the Battletoads are brawlers. That's kind of what they are. They don't have a lot of martial arts experience, but they have power to build up for it. The Double Dragons don't, so their combat abilities actually are represented through martial arts prowess.
It's
They're represented through martial arts abilities.
It's like having a Captain America versus a Hulk. Like the Battletoads are more like Hulk and Double Dragon.
If you had kind of like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game, like one of these crossed over with like maybe like Batman or something like that doing a beat up, that's what it kind of would be a little more. Which again, Battletoads is Rare's take on the turtles are popular. We're gonna do our own turtles.
Because everything had a Turtles alternative back in the 80s and 90s. Remember Biker Mice from Mars?
Oh,
Remember
yeah.
Street Sharks?
Oh, yeah.
Street Sharks.
Street Sharks. Is that the one that Vin Diesel did the commercials for?
Yes.
Yep.
But I think the animations, especially the Toads, the expressive nature of things, but they allow that expressive nature to come on. Some of the Billy and Jimmy get that expressive nature, which is really cool to see because the Double Dragon games in a lot of ways are 80s action films. That's what they are.
That's essentially what they are. Which is why I'm shocked that the 80s action film fucked it up. And then I remember it was made in 92. Well, 94, rather, I think. But either way. Because they're basically, you're walking through the street beating the shit out of people. That's basically the plot of the Double Dragon games. You're trying to save your girlfriend. Or Billy's girlfriend. Jimmy's just kind of there.
Wow, what a third wheel.
Jimmy is your best bro. He will do anything to help you. You.
Does it? Are princesses attracted to him if they have good taste?
But and it is fun to put the Double Dragon characters in kind of more of a sci-fi adventure, which is kind of cool to see. It's like almost like, you know, a little bit of out of your element, but also like they fit right in this world.
It does fit them, especially because like 1/3 of the Double Dragon games are post-apocalyptic.
True.
Because again, no one knows what they were doing.
They were just like, this would look cool. I think there'd be a movie that would be like this. Let's do that.
And I do think it's interesting that they. It's a little bit more interesting that they did this instead of like the alternative, which is like just having Battletoads fighting in the streets. At that point, it's just Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
It's not as interesting as having these two, let's face it, regular guys fighting in space and somehow being able to breathe without helmets. You know, that's more interesting. I want to know how they do that. How are they breathing on the ships without helmets?
Martial arts.
How are Battletoads are mutants. Maybe they've breathe in space.
They've been trained in martial arts, so they have breathing ability.
They're just holding their breath the whole time.
The way of the dragon teaches all. Even how to hold your breath in space? Yes.
I said, there's not a whole lot to talk about in the gameplay in this game. If you've played a beat 'em up, you've played this game.
A '90s beat 'em up specifically.
Yeah.
I will say specifically Battletoads.
Mm-hmm.
I know we brought that up already, but for example, Double Dragon has 2 attack buttons instead of a jump button, whereas Battletoads has 1 jump button, 1 attack button, and this plays like that. It plays 1 attack, 1 jump.
Yes.
So
because you're doing the frogs and toads jumping.
Yeah. Which I don't mind. So
and items could be picked up and, you know, smack people over the head with a lead pipe or a stick or other objects.
I think the only thing about this 2D beat 'em up that makes it so I probably wouldn't gravitate towards it as much as others is that the playing field is kind of small. Like especially comparing it to 2D beat 'em up that I played recently. The Simpsons game. The area in that game is pretty big, and there's a lot of places to walk around. And in this one, it's kind of smaller and condensed.
It is very much Rare's hallway going across look. You know, again, it's a different style, but you know, Donkey Kong being a platformer was very similarly built. So like Rare had kind of them going down a hallway, which there is a lot that do that sort of thing, especially in the Super Nintendo era. I think because of the 3D dynamics, they didn't feel like they needed to make it as much of like a space and more of like that because you could go down, you could hang off edges. There was some extra stuff that you could do with that, so it was more contained. But yeah, it is a little more hallway-esque.
It's a bit more contained than something like, say, Streets of Rage.
Yeah.
Or even like, you know, some of the Turtles games are a little more like it feels like you get more to an area and it's more spread out.
Yeah.
Whereas this is more like you're always in kind of a more contained hallway-esque.
And that could be trying to build up the kind of difficulty factor of Battletoads, because that's the big famous thing. Difficulty. Let's beat your ass.
And
Battletoads. Those are games those will beat you down. They're very hard games.
Well, now that you've played it, Mason, what do you think of the speed run record that is 21 minutes that someone beat this game in?
How in the world?
A lot of training.
How? I want to. Did they video it? They had to have videoed it.
Yeah. I mean,
to get it, I'm pretty sure to get it on the speed record, you have to have it on video. So
AGDQ, maybe.
Yep.
Or All Games Done Quick.
Yeah, I looked that up today because I was like, I wonder what the speed run record. I was like, yeah, maybe like 45 minutes, not 21 minutes.
How the
speedrunners are just built differently.
Speedrunners,
freaking speedrunners, man.
You know the Super Saiyans in Dragon Ball where you have to break a certain barrier? Those are speedrunners. They are our Super Saiyans.
Oh no, who killed Krillin?
Running 4!
So you're saying someone has to kill Krillin in front of them and then they can beat records?
Wait, okay, so...
someone kills Krillin in front of them and all of a sudden that 21-minute speedrun goes down to 3.
So wait, hold on. So if two speedrunners that can finish a game in 20 minutes do the fusion dance...
They can finish it in 10.
One game in 10 minutes.
Yes.
Sweet.
Actually, no, by the multiplier effect of that, it's probably actually going to be like 5 minutes. I know way too much about Dragon Ball power levels. God damn it.
Math.
But I guess, to maybe kind of move from the gameplay of this and more in kind of the reaction of it, this game was really, really, at the time, was really, really loved. And it's held very, very well up in that people still consider this game highly. I don't know if it's held up as much, like in terms of like people like talking about these franchises as much as individual Double Dragon or individual Battletoads. Mm-hmm. But this game across all the platforms that it was on, aside from the Game Boy was more of like middling, 50s and 60s kind of that 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 3 out of things like that. But the majority of the other systems were like 4 out of 5, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, things like that.
Yeah.
So like it was held up really well among the beat 'em up community, and it was played a lot, and it sold well. So like, so much so that it got added on to the NES one has been put on one of the Microsoft stores, I believe. And I think they've made the NES, redone the NES for on one of them, I believe, so you can play it. And I think the Super Nintendo one's coming as well, if I read somewhere that, or it was planned. Regardless, it's something that people have clamored to get more of, or to be able to access it than just having to bust out the old systems.
And as kind of sad as it is that Battletoads didn't have the kind of longevity that Double Dragon had, on the plus side, that does mean that Battletoads didn't have the chance to go downhill.
The beat 'em up franchise had a lot of trouble moving from 16-bit to beyond.
Yeah.
And that's beat 'em up the 64 PlayStation. Only until recently, when there's kind of been like a renaissance of the arcade beat 'em ups has come back, that like the franchises have come back. There's a new Double Dragon that is supposed to be coming out not too long. So like
new Double Dragon, Shredder's Revenge, Scott Pilgrim.
So like there's kind of, which is really cool because it is a genre that is really fun.
Yeah.
It's just it had a lot of trouble with translation to 3D.
Yeah.
As we saw with Beat Down Fists of Vengeance.
Is that technically a beat 'em up?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
Game?
3D beat 'em ups.
Yeah.
It's been almost a year since we've played that game. I still don't know what that game is.
It's Beat Down Fists of Vengeance. It's Steve Bloom plays not
Irishman.
Wolverine.
Irishman.
But yeah, and I think that's kind of like maybe as we saw with the Battletoads revival here, it's something that we could maybe see more of in the future because there is a beat 'em up revival of it.
Yeah.
At least arcade style revival, and maybe someone will crack the code and we will get really good 3D beat 'em ups. Like that's maybe something that we'll get in the future.
One day.
We've gotten one.
Yeah.
It's the Warriors.
Yep.
It's the only one we've gotten that's actually pretty solid.
And I mean, it's not 1-to-1, but a lot of the GTA games and and the like, things like Just Cause and the sandbox games like those, that they do take a lot of elements from old OG beat 'em ups. They do take a lot of elements of being able to go and a lot of the same controls and put it 3D, but it's just not the same. It's not the way they had an arcade fighter. It is very much more of I can run around in an open world and just punch and kick.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the closest we've gotten to like a open world 3D beat 'em up is Sleeping Dogs.
Yeah.
Oh.
But even that
I haven't thought about that game in a while.
But even that transfers to gunplay in like the last half. So
Yeah, and that's one of there's elements to it, but it almost always includes a shooter element to it.
Yeah.
Which maybe that is the evolution of the beat 'em up, is to be that. It is to be Grand Theft Auto.
Maybe,
to be Just Cause or any of the Saints Row, any of the those types. So, but
Yeah. One day we'll get that 3D Battletoads remake. Hell, you know what? Since Battletoads has already had its comeback, Double Dragon is getting its, we might get a new one. We might get a new crossover between the two.
Everyone's going to listen to this podcast and start buying Battletoads, and Rare can thank us. Please, Rare.
We saved you.
Exactly.
Nothing else.
Sure as hell not Microsoft. Turning you into a Kinect Games Factory.
For a little while, yeah.
Turning you into a Sea of Thieves factory.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Which, to be fair,
I've heard great... See, I've never gotten to play Sea of Thieves, but I've heard nothing but great things from people who've played it.
I've played it, and it's definitely a multiplayer game. That's what I'll say about that.
That's fair.
I just didn't have that much fun, but again, maybe because it's a single player...
But
I had it as a single player
that's
experience.
where Rare was at their strength, was multiplayer type games. It's not to say they didn't make fun single player games, but at their pinnacle, you know, whether you're playing Battletoads with your friend, whether you're playing Donkey Kong Country, which had you're playing 2-player, whether you're back in Donkey Kong 64, which had the multiplayer games, or GoldenEye, or Perfect Dark, or Diddy Kong Racing, they were so good at putting multiple people on the couch and playing games. And so if that brings it back, then that sort of thing back, then yeah, cool.
There you go.
But yeah, on this podcast, we ask 2 important questions of every game we play. The first is, how does this game hold up?
Really damn well. I don't think there. I might end up.
I mean, it's a 30-year-old game, so
Yeah, I might end up like biting my tongue on this, but I don't think there's a Super Nintendo game that has aged badly.
there are a few. There definitely are a few.
There's probably a couple, but not any of the like popular ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only like majorly popular one that I can think of is Super Mario Kart. I don't think it's really aged that well.
I think it aged amazingly. Now it has things that you can cheat through, but I love Super Mario Kart is my favorite Mario Kart. So
Okay, so today's the day we learn that Sean is a psychopath. Anyways.
or the correct psychopath.
The correct answer is Double Dash, bitch.
That's my second favorite.
Yes,
My top
that is the right answer.
My top 3 are Super Mario Kart, Double Dash, and then I actually really love the Game Boy Advance version.
Really?
Super
Yeah.
Circuit?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
All right then. So Sean has a type with Mario Kart.
I
games,
do have a type of
apparently.
Mario Kart games. When they left 3D, they got hard, and I'm bad at them. When they're in 2D, I'm good at them.
Anyways, yes, the game has aged well.
It has aged very well. It looks beautiful. Even at this point, we said the sprite work is there, and the music. I know we didn't mention a whole lot, but the music. Not all Super Nintendo games music hold up. That's just for a time of the era. You're developing music for a very small device that you have to make it all the way you do. But the ones that do just are bangers left and right.
I mentioned this in our top 5 list, the video game tracks list, where like the Super Nintendo and the Genesis era was like the first where like most of the games across the board had great music, and this is a great example of that. Like you probably wouldn't think about it that much, but if you actually like listen closely to it, it's.
And again, like a lot of the Super Nintendo music is repetitive because that's what you had to do for it. But God, I love this soundtrack, and it does engross you into what you're playing, and it feels very good playing it.
It's a very good heavy soundtrack. Like not like heavy guitar or heavy metal or whatever, but it kind of has that thumping feel, which is really good for a beat 'em up soundtrack.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you say what you thought on the hold up, Thomas?
I think it holds up pretty well. Like, I'm not gonna say it holds up like fantastically or whatever. Like, this isn't the best holding up game we've played or whatever. But I think that it's pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, graphically, I think it holds up really well. 2D stuff in general ages better than 3D stuff, especially
90s 2D stuff holds up better than 90s 3D stuff.
Yeah.
exactly. So, yeah, I think it holds up beautiful. I think it's pretty good looking. Some wonderful expression work, wonderful sprites, pretty solid gameplay, really hard-hitting, satisfying combos. Yeah, I think this game holds up pretty friggin' solidly.
Yeah. And our second question, I know that there has been a reboot in Battletoads, but it's specifically this game. Would you like to see a reboot or a reimagining of this game in a modern setting?
It's been a reboot of Battletoads. We're getting a reboot of Double Dragon. So
maybe reboot or
we're getting another Double Dragon. So yeah, it may very well be in the cards that we get another one of these, and I wouldn't be against it. I'm not the biggest fan of 2D beat 'em ups in general, mainly because they're hard as balls and I'm bad at them. But it's not something I would be totally against either, and I think it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love a good 2D beat 'em up. I'm always down for more. And if one happened to come out that combined two of these really famous beat 'em up franchises, I think it would be a pretty damn good 2D experience, another good revival, basically.
What we've seen in a lot of the beat 'em ups of modern is they also are good storytelling experiences, which is something that early 90s beat 'em ups struggle. Like the story in this game, it's there, but it's not, aren't really engrossed in the story. But versus something like Scott Pilgrim, where the story is still very much at the forefront, I wouldn't be opposed to I don't know if I would say a remake, but a sequel type of thing that would be like taking these two franchises, but being able to focus more on showing some of the story and how these two franchises came together and what their really goal is. And in the end, if it's just trying to save, Billy and Jimmy's girl again and the Toads are helping, that's cool. But I would like to see something along those lines that could be kind of fun.
I like how you said Billy and Jimmy's girl, like they're just both dating her.
Well, Billy is Jimmy's there along as bestest friend.
They're brothers.
No, he's bestest friend.
And
and brother.
And as this season has been, as we've talked about crossovers a lot in this season, recently the Battletoads have had another crossover of their own in Shovel Knight.
Yeah.
So there could be a whole game in that, honestly.
Plus they actually, Zitz, I believe, was the one who was in Killer Instinct.
Yes.
So.
Oh, that's right.
And
I forgot about that.
I mean, again, crossovers are always hard with licensing and different things. But, would I really like to see Battletoads and the Ninja Turtles crossover in some capacity, considering one is based off the other a little bit? That could be really cool.
Just make a beat 'em up where they're all there.
All of them.
TMNT, Biker Mice, Street Sharks, Battletoads. All of them, baby.
All of them. And you could make new characters for a game like this. New characters added into it and things like that. And have more... One of the things that's great about Scott Pilgrim is that the replayability as different characters is really fun. Mm-hmm. So, there are things you can absolutely do.
Thought you were talking about more TMNT ripoffs. It was like Curious Cats from Krypton. Let's go, baby.
Yeah. But I think there is still stuff that could be done from this franchise. But also, I'm not necessarily clamoring for either a remake or a reimagining on this. I'd be okay with more accessibility. I know that Rare has done a few things now with Nintendo, knowing that they've had the Banjo-Kazooie in Smash and GoldenEye on the N64 store.
And Banjo-Kazooie on the N64.
Yeah, Banjo-Kazooie on the 64 store. Could, just adding this game to the Super Nintendo store, adding more of the... Because you've got the Double Dragons, and I think... Do you have Battletoads on the NES, I believe, is on the store? Is on the NES one.
Maybe, I'm not sure.
I know Double Dragon is.
Double Dragon is. I think there's a couple Double Dragons out there. But
So, you could add more, and I think it's less about new games and more of just more accessibility for it would be great, so more audience can play it. Because I really do love this game.
Yeah, and it'd be fun to get more people to experience it.
So, real quick, as we're wrapping up the podcast, I didn't know another place to bring this up, so I thought now's a good time as any. Are you guys familiar with the Battletoads prank calling that happened that was really big in 2011, 2012?
No, I have
No.
Okay, so are both of you familiar with the TV show Pawn Stars?
Yes.
You guys know that show. So there was a trend going around the internet in 2011, 2012 where people would en masse prank call the Pawn Stars shop and ask, "Do you have Battletoads?" Which started leading to the main guy on that show, Rick, screaming and cursing at them on the phone, and then people would record the conversation and upload it on YouTube. It's really hilarious. So if anybody out there takes away one thing about from this podcast, go look up Battletoads prank call on YouTube.
Okay.
But what do you guys think? Do you like Battletoads, Double Dragon, this game? Well, you can let us know
Do you like Battletoads, Double Dragon, or both?
Or both. You can let us know by dropping us an email at bleepyouplaying@gmail.com. That's bleepyouplaying@gmail.com. Let us know what you think there. If you would like to tell us to play a game or watch a movie for What the Bleep Are You Watching, you can also do that by subscribing to our Super Bleephead tier over on Patreon.com. That's Patreon.com/WhatTheBleep. You can subscribe for $15 a month and tell us what to play or watch. We will have a game or a movie to do that each month you're subscribed. As long as it doesn't break the bank, we'll do it. And if you're listening to this on Apple, leave us a nice 5-star review. Tell us that we're beautiful or whatnot. And we'll be.
You can imagine what we look like through our voices.
Exactly. We're beautiful.
We look like the Battletoads, don't we?
Exactly.
Don't give away our secret. Don't give away that we're the real Battletoads.
Dibs on zits.
I don't even know.
But yeah, we'll be back with some John Woo style action next time.
I liked it.